Good evening, Guardians, and welcome back to Tower Talk. And my gosh, have we got a show for you tonight. I'm Ben Boyce. On the other end of the microphone there, that's Brent Felsing. And joining us this evening is our good buddy, Frankie Ayler. You know him better as Viper Strike, because we've got a big show tonight for you. Season of the Drifter has been revealed, so we've got a lot of stuff to discuss on the show tonight. So we appreciate everybody tuning in, being a part of the conversation. If you like what we do here, subscribe to the channel, like the video, follow us on Twitter at The Short Pause so you always know what we're up to. Tower Talk is our Destiny-focused video discussion series where we hop on here, we talk any and everything in the world of Destiny, where we have a good time doing it. Brent, talk to me, buddy. How are you feeling this evening, man?
Dude, we have so much stuff to unpack after that epic ViDoc, and then we got a bunch of stuff. We had like 3 different posts go up on Bungie.net. We had 3 different posts, including the TWAB. A lot of great stuff to talk about. We talked about last week, when are we going to find out? We get the Scourge of the Past raid stream the other day, and then boom, and everything announced shortly after. Look for the ViDoc on Thursday. Thursday is, it's come and gone. We have a lot to discuss. We were watching the video multiple times, breaking down as much as we can, see what we can find hidden in that video. There's always some good stuff littered throughout. We were trying to pick apart what we could. And so we got a lot to talk about tonight, but I'm excited, dude.
Absolutely. So it's, as we predicted, a ViDoc came out, and man, Bungie knows how to put one of these things there. They know how to get the community amped up. They know how to get people excited about what's coming to this game. These ViDocs are always awesome. They always get the juices flowing. It's tough to focus at work. You're like, man, I want to go home and get ready for the Drifter. It doesn't even come out for multiple days, but you're ready to go home and just run into a wall and stuff. So bravo to Bungie for another excellent ViDoc. The show was so big tonight, Brent, with so many things to discuss, that we had to get Frankie involved. So we didn't know Frankie was going to be available, but he was an 11th hour addition to the show. We're glad to have him here. How you doing, bud? Welcome to Tower Talk.
Doing all right. It's been a long day. Got up way too early. Didn't get enough sleep as usual, and got a text like, "Hey, do you want off tonight?" I was like, "Yeah." So I took a nap, and I was like, "Hey, I think I can actually make Tower Talk tonight." I'll text him. So.
Oh yeah.
Lucky you. Well, welcome. Like I said, we're glad to have you here to be a part of this conversation. And Brent, like you said, man, we've got a ton of stuff to discuss tonight. The proverbial lid was blown off of Season of the Drifter today, so we know a whole lot more than we did last week about what's coming up this Tuesday with our with Destiny here. So let's get right into it. So the ViDoc went live at noon Eastern today, and it was 8-9 minutes of just an onslaught of information about what Season of the Drifter had to entail. And I'll be honest with you guys, there was a lot more in here than I expected. So, I expected certain things with Season of the Drifter. Obviously, with Gambit being the main focus of it, it made sense that would be a core focus of this. But there were lots of other things we're getting outside of Gambit that I did not expect. I was really excited to see in this. But we're going to start there with Gambit, and the big pinnacle activity that's coming with Season of the Drifter is, of course, Gambit Prime. So this is, as the developers call it, the sweatier version of Gambit. It's the competitive version of Gambit, and there are some things that will be changing with this. So let's get into what those are. So Gambit Prime is a 1-round version of Gambit. The way the matches will actually play out is you'll be able to steal motes from your other team's bank. So there's a couple things that are going to change here. One is that it's 1 round. The second is that you'll be able to steal motes from your opposing team's bank. And thirdly, the bosses. So once again, this is a 1-round rush here. The bosses will have mechanics in order to cause damage to them. They mentioned raids in the same breath as this. So think of raid boss mechanics and having to figure out how to work those into you attacking this enemy. So this will help eliminate those those instant melts that you get when those primeval spawn when your team is set up the right way. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what Gambit Prime is going to involve. That's different from the Gambit that we know and love, and obviously we'll have to get in there and see how it plays and see how different this are and how different Gambit Prime feels. But that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg here. So they mentioned in the video that with Gambit Prime will be, when we first jump into that, it's going to feel very similar to the Gambit that we know and love. But as the weeks evolve here and the Season of the Drifter rolls on, this thing is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve because of this new mechanic that they're bringing into Gambit with this Gambit Prime armor. So this is a super cool, in my opinion, a super cool thing that they're doing with Gambit, where it's actually going to allow you to hone in on a specific role for yourself as a player. And let's talk real quickly about what those roles are. So we have the Reaper, who is the enemy slayer, the guy that's just going to go out there and just rock out on the ads. You have the Collector, who's the guy that's going to grab the moats and be responsible for depositing them into the bank. You have the Sentry. This is the guy that's going to handle the taken blockers and kind of protect the bank, presumably from somebody who's going to try to steal your moats. And then we have the Invader, who obviously invades the other team and just wrecks the other team as much as possible. So these are kind of the 4 roles that have formed with Gambit as we've been playing it, the Gambit that we know and love since Forsaken came out. So these 4 roles were already in the game anyways, and now they're kind of massaging this and honing in on these different roles and really letting you build your character to take advantage of one of these roles, much like a like a role-playing game. Like if you're a tank, you're gonna build your character to be a tank. You're gonna build your character to do damage and take damage. So it's kind of a similar idea with what they're doing with Gambit here. And to facilitate this is like I mentioned, this new Gambit armor that's gonna come into play. It's all color coded. It looks absolutely badass. It's got the Gambit snakes. They're all lit in neon colors. There's different colors for each role. So for instance, the Invader is red, and then there's green and blue and or like a light blue or white, and then yellow. So there's different colors that are for the different roles. One other cool thing they mentioned in this week at Bungie is that they've thought about accessibility when it comes to this as well. So they are implementing things to help with people who are colorblind to be able to still go in there and have fun with Gambit and tell the difference between the different invaders. So I thought that was neat. All right, so that's a lot with Gambit Prime right there. There's going to be some more stuff we're going to talk about here in a minute. But Brent, I want to bring you in on the conversation here, man. Talk to me about what you're feeling about Gambit Prime and some of the changes that they're making with this new kind of pinnacle Gambit activity.
Well, I loved how they mentioned it in the ViDoc. They were like, look, Gambit was like the training for the heist, and Gambit Prime is the heist. This is what you've been training for. This is what you've been playing Gambit for, is to get down the basic mechanics. But now comes like the tough version of it, the sweatier version of it. And we've been wondering, what's this new variation of Gambit going to be? Now we know. And, this is going to be 1 round. We don't get 3 rounds. So this is going to be a very intense, fast-paced. It's going to require quick thinking. You don't have the luxury of like, oh, look, we'll get him in the next 2 rounds and get him in the rubber match. We don't have that. This is a one-shot deal. And now you add in this element of roles, of different roles. And I love that. I think that's really, really cool because it's going, if I like invading, I really like invading, so I'm definitely going to want to try the Invader role. That's going to be the role I want to get really comfortable in and learn all the nuances of it. Because as you can see, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but it appears that these different types of roles, we see these little symbols just below the name. You see Invader, Lethal Assassin, then you see these 4 perks. I'm assuming those are perks. That looks like the same symbols that we see tied to armor and weapons for the perks. So, and each of these is different. We have different perks on each of these armor sets. So it's just not a title. Each role is going to have, it appears, some sort of perks to that role that's going to be beneficial. So if I'm picking to be an invader, I better be doing the invading because I have the perk set tied to my armor or whatever it is, or to that role, and it's going to be beneficial for the team.
Yeah, dude, I love this idea. Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about these little perk things that we see on your. So we're watching the ViDoc, and then it just kind of catches your eye there. You're watching it, you're kind of caught up in the moment. Then when you go back and watch it a second time, you're like, wait a minute, there's some little perks and stuff underneath each of these names, and presumably these are tied to your helmet, to your chest piece, to your arms, and to your legs. So there's a perk for each piece of armor as you go through and try and build your ultimate Gambit character to take into Gambit Prime, whether you're the Reaper, the Collector, Invader, or the Sentry. And
keep in mind, and I'm sorry to cut you off, keep in mind, this is just speculation. We're not 100% sure, but this is based on what Boyce and I have noticed, with Destiny. When you look at your armor sets, each piece of armor has its own set of perks, or, whatever it does, its specific perks. And typically, like, the artifact doesn't have anything, like, really big tied to it. But as we know, we'll talk about it, we're going to go into the Reckoning a little bit, and that's where you can earn armor pieces. And I'm assuming, based on what we see here, we see these 4 perks, and in this picture, we see this person has all the gear. They have all the armor on. So I'm assuming, until we find out more, that each armor piece is going to have something to do with these perks, because we're going to earn armor pieces over time. So at first you might not have all the perks, or maybe you'll just have one, or maybe you need all the armor pieces to activate all the perks. We don't know the specifics of it, but I'm willing to bet this is going to be something tied to the armor.
Absolutely. Frankie, hop in here. Talk to me about Gambit Prime.
No, like you guys said, I'm very excited about it. You know, I when they were talking about how, you know, Gambit and now is kind of like the training for the heist. This is the heist. I mean, Gambit comes down to, you know, how well your team performs, and this feels like that next step where, you know, if we're in there, you know, we're always communicating. We know what we're doing.
Yep.
You know, that's going to be a much easier game for us, theoretically, of course, because, you know, sometimes, you know, we have off nights all the time. But no, I mean, I'm excited. Just the fact that your team and the teamwork in general is going to be the key to success for this mode. And the other thing too I'm curious about is if we're going to be able to like mix and match these armor pieces, you know, if we're not like somebody who's a decisive role, if we're just sort of, you know, oh, the portal's open, no one's hopping in, you know, I'll go invade. And, you know, I mean, like sometimes you just sort of do what's near you. You're not necessarily focused on a certain goal. So I'm wondering if, you know, it's like these armor pieces are going to have perks, supposedly, you know, like, are we going to be able to kind of pick and choose certain things that we like about each role that we'll be able to utilize? But
and see, that's and I'll let you finish in a second. That's one thing that Boyce and I kind of talked about before the show. It was before we got you on. Is we thought about that. You know, it's like, you know, can you mix and match the armor pieces? I think, you know, that makes sense, but at the same time, I would be concerned about that breaking up the actual roles. You know, because the invader has that specific set. That's for invasion. And they did mention, you can have a full team of invaders. You can have a full team of sentries. So, I mean, you can still go out there and be like, okay, look, you know, I'm going to do this. But the set that you have, the role that you pick is going to be specific to that role for invasion. So if you pick to be a collector or a reaper, jumping into invasion, you might be at a disadvantage because you don't have those extra perks. And, I mean, I like the idea of being able to switch things up, but I think it takes away from the roles, the concept of the roles having everybody in a role. But at least you can choose, you know, look, you know, I'll do this stuff, but I want to be an invader. So, you know, I want to be able to have that invader set. And, you know, the more we talk about this and we think about this, and again, Frank, I'll let you continue in a second. I wonder if it's not so much the armor pieces that are all different for each role. I'm assuming all the armor pieces are the same, and it just depends on which role you select. You know, it's not each piece is going to have a random roll of all those perks. I'm wondering if because it would make sense if all the armor pieces was just, hey, look, this is the Gambit Prime armor, and then when you select that role, whatever role you want, those are the perks that will activate on that armor. So swapping in and out, and that would you know, make sense, because then you won't be able to swap out pieces and break up that stuff. So I'm wondering if the armor set is just the same all across the board, and then it alters with the roles that you pick. But go ahead, continue with what you were saying.
Yeah, the other thing I'm wondering is if maybe those perks only activate if you're dedicated to a certain role. If you're just, you know, just wanting to do whatever and not necessarily, you know, consider yourself, you know, I'm just an invader, I'm just a collector. You know, if you're not picking a specific role, then maybe you don't have perks for the armor. Maybe that's true. You know what I mean? So, but I do think it's really great that they, you know, kind of looked at how people were playing Gambit and settled on this, because I notice when I play Gambit, when I go into a game, I tend to focus on either, you know, I'm just going to sit back and kill people. You guys go get motes. Other times, you know, I notice people doing that. So I'll run in, I'll grab a bunch of motes. I'll focus on invading sometimes. So I think it's cool that they really honed in on that and found a way to make that like a very unique thing to chase for people who enjoy that mode.
And boys, I'm going to let you come back and get control again. But I do want to ask you guys one thing here. You know, we think about Gambit, you know, as the 3-player. This is now the Gambit is now the base mode. It's just regular Gambit and still fun. And then if you look at that compared to Crucible is just you've got quick play and you've got you know, the next step there. But then I think about Gambit Prime, and I think about that as Trials of the Nine or competitive. Like it's a next evolution. It's the next step up in serious station where you will want to communicate. Say, look, I am going to do this role. It's going to require constant communication, constant teamwork. I feel like this is the equivalent of competitive or Trials of the Nine for Crucible. It's like you got the base stuff here, and then you have the upper echelon for the serious competitors.
That's exactly what it is with Gambit Prime. This is not a mode you're going to be able to go into and you're not on the same page with your team. Just like it's very difficult to go into competitive as a solo player. You can do it to a certain extent, to a certain level, but once you hit like heroic or fabled or mythic or heaven forbid legend, I mean, once you get into those echelons of competitive, you cannot be in there as a solo player. It just doesn't work. No. You'll just get the floor waxed with you. So I would imagine it's the same thing with Gambit Prime, with bosses that require mechanics, with specific roles that you play as a character and that you could build your character around. That requires an intense amount of communication and strategy and organization. You can only do that if you're all on the same page as a team. So if you're somebody that you're just a casual player, you just want to hop in, have some fun with Gambit, like regular Gambit's going to be there.
Right.
But for those of us that want to take things to the next level, that want to get into that pinnacle Gambit activity, we have Gambit Prime. So I don't think there's any question that Gambit Prime is going to function very similarly to the competitive playlist or, like you said, Trials when it comes to the Crucible. I think that's an apt comparison. So when it comes to this now, so we were talking about those perks there for a minute, and I think clearly that's going to be one of the cool things about Gambit Prime is getting your hands on these pieces of armor, which presumably will only do things that happen in Gambit Prime. So I would imagine that this wouldn't be for regular Gambit. This wouldn't be of any use to you in PvE activities. There might be some. I can envision some of the basic armor roles still being present on these pieces of armor. Obviously, you don't want to lose access to that kind of stuff, like your weapon loaders and that kind of stuff. You still want that on your armor, but there's going to be a specific Gambit perk that's associated with each of these pieces of armor. And just looking at there, Brent, it's we're trying to figure out like what these things are, and all of these look new. They don't look like things that we've seen before. They look kind of similar. Yeah, some stuff we've seen before, like looking at the Reaper, for instance. There's a couple of perks on him that look very similar to like a kill clip or a rampage, which would make sense because this is the guy that's just absolutely decimating the enemies for the team. So it makes sense that he would have access to an enhanced rampage or whatnot. And what Frankie was talking about with mixing the builds, there's a bunch of different ways they can go with this, but I'm curious if maybe there's synergy between the pieces of armor. So, for instance, once again, we have no basis for any of this stuff. But let's just say, for instance, one piece of armor gives you an enhanced overshield as an invader. So you go over there and you get an enhanced overshield, and that's in the helmet. And then you get the chest piece, and with that chest piece, your enhanced overshield is now the defense is doubled or something like that. Like these perks maybe start to play off each other and entice you to build your character with all of the different pieces of armor and build this synergy with your character. So I could see that being an option as well. But back to these pieces of armor. Obviously, when we're talking things like rampage and kill clip, these are weapon. These are our weapon perks. These aren't armor perks. So there's one we saw in there that looked like it had something maybe to do with a reload. That was for the invader. So we're trying to like piece together all these things, and then there's a bunch of stuff that just looks foreign. On the collector, we saw what looks to be some type of a moat perk. So obviously this is the guy that's collecting the moats. So maybe there's a perk that gives you multiple moats for depositing a single moat. Maybe there's something along those lines. But there's any number of different ways. Proximity collection. That would be awesome. You just have a magnet that sucks stuff in, like some of those games. That would be a sweet perk, and it would make a lot of sense as a collector to have that perk. So, but yeah, dude, I mean, what do you think, Brian? What are we getting? Like enhanced rampage, enhanced kill clip, proximity moat collection? There's so many cool things they could do with this. I can't wait to see exactly how this works.
Yeah, dude, there's so much you can look at these things and just try to figure out what are they. Because like you said, there's some of them that look like kill clip, and then we've got the invader, and we were talking about, the invader, he's going to the other side, and we know in Gambit Prime that you can you can kind of like you can steal motes for the other team. And that second one down, I don't know. Does that look like? It looks like the mote container where you put the motes. I can't make it out in this image, but in the video, like when it turns over, it looks like it's a mote collector, like the actual machine they put in. So I can't help but wonder, maybe the invader, he has some kind of ability to steal the motes. Maybe that's what that is. I don't know. It's just there's a lot to these like little images, and like I want to know what they mean. You know, this when we look at the collector, the third one down, it looks, I can't tell if that's a sword, but there's a plus sign, so it's an enhanced for something. For when it comes to the collector, something enhanced, but we don't know what it is. We see the shield. There's just there's so many different ways we could look at these things and try to figure out what they are. But yeah, it's super interesting, dude.
Yeah, and it's clear that these are new perks. These are things that we haven't seen before. They're going to be specific to these Gambit pieces of armor. They're going to give us benefits in Gambit Prime itself. How about you, Frank? You got any inside info on what these perks are, man? You wish your Bungie connects.
Like I said, that proximity collector would be really great.
I really hope that's there, because I can't tell you how many times I'll sit there and run underneath one of those motes when it's in the air, and I'm just like, why haven't I collected it yet? Or I think I grab it and I don't. I'm just like, damn it, and you can't leave those behind. So yeah, that'd be awesome. There's some kind of like a proximity thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, and plus too, I think it would make sense for the invader to be the one who has some kind of perk to steal motes, right?
Yeah. Because he's over on the other side, he might as well be. He's got to be the one that's stealing them.
Yeah. So I mean, that kind of gives you, you have an invader. Is he coming for me, or is he going like, it's going to kind of change the strategy of the other team when you invade. Yeah, that's the case.
Absolutely, and you've got a sentry whose job it is to like guard the bank and handle the taken when they come in, and presumably guard the bank from the invader as well. So you're like, all right, do I go to the bank and deal with this dude? Do I just try and hunt down these other guys and take their motes? Like there's definitely new strategies that open up there as a part of it. So I'm super curious to see how all of this works together, but really, really excited. I love this idea. This sounds like a great next evolution of what we've come to expect from Gambit. Like you guys mentioned, Gambit's just a super fun mode. It's really exciting to get in there and play these matches. If you get in there with a team that knows what they're doing, or two teams that know what they're doing for that matter, it's a really intense game. And I mean, some of those matches we have in regular Gambit are incredibly intense. So I'm just picturing what a Gambit Prime match is going to look like. I mean, I might need to change my shirt after one of these matches. I don't know. It's gonna be intense.
Yeah, if I'm live streaming, I can't be wearing a dark shirt because you see the tit sweat underneath. Yeah, so I gotta make sure I'm wearing a white shirt.
Yeah, we have to put an age gate on the video. To caution, tit sweat incoming.
Don't wear a white shirt.
Why not?
Have you never been to a wet T-shirt contest? Not saying I have.
Oh yeah, that's true. VOX Entity is in the chat today. So is Wolf. Welcome you guys. He said, I don't see too many people that remember that they can pick up motes while they're invading to get back in bank. And that's something that, I think you're right, dude, because and a lot of time when you're invading, you're so focused on killing other people and then when you get wiped out, you're actually losing all those motes. So it's just as important to stay alive while you're invading, especially if you're able to pick up some of those motes, because you can get out of there with some extra motes.
What if as an invader, let's say you have 15 motes banked as an invader, and when you go over to the other side, you can actually steal the amount of motes you have banked as an invader.
Oh, gross.
So if I go over with 15 and I make it over to your bank and I do like the deposit animation, I'm actually stealing 15 motes from your bank. And I could use my motes that way. Like that could be cool.
That would be gross. What's up, JD? JD's in the chat. How you doing tonight, buddy?
JD, what's up, bud? Yeah, so just a lot of really cool, really exciting stuff surrounding Gambit and the new armor pieces. And anything I'm leaving out here with Gambit Prime that we haven't touched on?
I mean, I think we've entered the realm of speculation at this point. I think we've touched on everything. We've touched on everything they've talked about. But yeah, it's funny. But that's the whole point of like these ViDocs, because you know what they're doing. Bungie knows what they're doing. These ViDocs, they put things in there. They don't talk about it, but they know it's all in there for people to start breaking down and like really looking at like those symbols, trying to figure out what they are. So I mean, it's gonna be really exciting finding out once we get into this next week and really start to explore that armor and just how those perks work.
And this will not be the end of speculation on this episode, so buckle up. We've got more planned for you. So in addition to obviously the new Gambit activity, we'll have new Gambit maps as well. So we have New Arcadia set on Mars, and then Deep Six set on Titan, which both look like really, really cool maps. I like that Titan map. It all kind of it all kind of gravitates towards the center arena that everything is centered around. That one looks like it's going to be a really interesting map. New Arcadia looks like it's got different levels, and I always like going to Mars. So looking forward to that one as well. Presumably these maps would be a part of the regular Gambit rotation as well as the Gambit Prime rotation. So we can probably look forward to those in regular Gambit as well. So that's Gambit Prime, but that is not the end. And this is where things got really interesting with the ViDoc. So they talked about Gambit Prime, which obviously we knew some variation of Gambit was coming. This is Season of the Drifter after all. But now they bring in this thing called the Reckoning. So we're talking about Gambit Prime, and then, oh, wait, there's this loop that you guys are going to be a part of. So when you first jump into the game, you're going to go play a match at Gambit Prime. Once you finish that match, you're going to be able to enter something called the Reckoning. This is a pinnacle PvE activity that they're adding with Season of the Drifter that actually takes place inside of that ball that the Drifter's carrying on the back of his ship. And it actually transports you to the plains of the Nine. This is an area that we've seen in the Crucible in the Eternity map. So, or when you make it, if you were playing Trials when that was around, when Destiny 2 first came out, you made it to see the Emissary. You were in this kind of plains of the Nine, this very ethereal, just open, airy space. That's very mysterious as the Nine are. So they mentioned this pinnacle PvE activity. They said right from the get-go, like, this is not easy. You are going to jump in here and you are going to be swarmed from all sides by enemies. It's going to be complete chaos, as they put it. So they mentioned think the D1 Crota raid. And I'm thinking when you get dropped into that raid and the Thrall are coming at you from all angles, that's kind of what I'm picturing with when they mentioned the Reckoning activity and they mentioned the D1 Crota raid. So so we can expect absolute chaos in there. It appears to be some type of a horde mode, and we don't know for sure exactly what the Reckoning is. But when we first get to play it, there's going to be 3 tiers to this match. We're going to have access to tier 1 at first, and from there tier 2 and tier 3 will become available in the future, much like they did with the Blinding Well. We first got access to that tier 1 activity, then they gave us the tier 2 and the tier 3, and things changed once you get up to those other tiers. So I'm expecting that with the Reckoning as well, and it looks like some of the environments were changing when they were showing us some of the different tiers. So really, really looking forward to seeing how this exactly works. But essentially, what the Reckoning is going to do is going to loop you back into Gambit Prime. So you are going to go into the Reckoning, try to complete the activity, and at the end of the activity, you'll have access to presumably one of these pieces of armor, which will then take back into Gambit Prime, and then you can really start making moves as a team, and you can start doing damage. It sounds to me from what they were talking about like maybe we'll have access to a limited amount of armor pieces per week. You won't just be able to go in there and just max out your character right from the get-go. Once again, just speculation, but from the way they were talking, that's the vibe I got, that there was going to be different weeks and different things that were going to be available to you. And this brings up a whole other conversation. You alluded to it earlier, Brent. We were talking about this a little bit before the show, but you know, when you get this armor, do you then get to pick which style that you want the armor to be? Like, I want this to be Invader armor. Are you then locked into that pick? Can you change it on the fly once you have it on your character? Are you able to switch between the different roles when you want? So, you know, there's lots of things that come into play with this. But essentially what they've talked about is creating this loop where you go into Gambit Prime or you go into the Reckoning, achieve a piece of armor, loop back into Gambit Prime, play that activity, go back into the Reckoning, get new armor, so on and so forth. You're constantly looping between these two activities. There's a synergy between the two of them. So I'm all about horde mode, pinnacle PvE activities. The ones we've had in Destiny up to this point have been spectacular. They've been a lot of fun, from Escalation Protocol to the Blind Well to the Haunted Forest, you name it. Any one of these things that they've done, Prison of the Elders, like all this stuff's been really, really fun. So I'm all about a brand new pinnacle PvE horde mode activity with the Reckoning. Brent, talk to me about your thoughts on this, man.
Yeah, I like this idea of giving you kind of an objective to go in there to get better at Gambit Prime. I think that's really good because it's going to keep you in a loop, going to keep you going, trying out 2 different activities. You're going to go into Gambit Prime, you're going to play a certain type of mode, then you're going to go into the Reckoning and do something even more difficult. This is supposed to be a pinnacle event. This is going to be a top-tier challenge, and you're going to get the rewards that you really want from it. You're going to get those armor pieces for Gambit Prime, and then once you get those pieces, you're going to want to go right back into Gambit Prime. So it's going to be a nice loop to have. It's going to have 2 different. I'm assuming it's going to be 2 different experiences. I mean, from what we see with Gambit Prime, it's more objective based. You're sticking to an objective. You're doing your roles. Whereas this is just survive as long as you can. There's obviously a timer. Yeah, there's a timer in here.
Timer as well. Yeah.
You're going to have to sit there and eliminate all the enemies. I'm assuming before the time runs out. Sounds like a great mode. That almost sounds like kind of like Prison of Elders. Don't you have to eliminate a bunch of enemies in a certain amount of time before time runs out? Wasn't there a timer in Prison?
No.
No, there wasn't. I thought there was a timer.
I mean, there's a timer when the bombs came out, but
okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it could be.
But yeah, no, there's
a timer in the Haunted Forest.
There was a timer in the Haunted Forest. Yep.
So, but yeah, so they mentioned that kind of adds to the chaos as you get dropped into this. You're already getting attacked from all sides, and this timer is clicking down. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And you just get stressed out and die. But yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Frankie, talk to me about the Reckoning.
No, like you guys are saying, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. The second he mentioned the Crota raid, I just had flashbacks to when I finally got Necrochasm, and that initial wave of thralls is coming at you, and just watching all the explosions because of that gun.
Yeah,
those great times. I love that gun. I miss Necrochasm. Anyways, the thing that I think that immediately I thought of when I first saw like all these enemies running at you was when you get to that one of the last rooms in the Whisper mission, and there's just all these damn taken everywhere, running at you, things exploding everywhere, pure chaos. And it's just like, okay, yeah. I mean, look, we got through it eventually.
Yep.
So, and it feels good when you get through. So I feel like these armor pieces are going to be a very nicely earned reward for doing this. So I'm excited to get in there and wreak havoc on these guys.
Absolutely, and this is the pinnacle activity, the pinnacle PvE activity of this DLC or this part of the annual pass. So no doubt this will be challenging, this will be hard, this will be exciting, and those, like you said, those armor pieces will be well earned. So yeah, very, very, very interested to see how this loop plays out. Like, I'm imagining you can go through the Reckoning maybe once a week, and you'll have access to a piece of armor. Once you complete it, then you take that armor back into Gambit Prime. You use that for that week. The next week comes up, you go back into the Reckoning. You can get your next piece of armor. You slide back into Gambit Prime the following week, and that's kind of the loop that it plays out as you start to build your character and get access to these abilities. But all speculation. We'll see.
Yep.
We'll see how it all plays out in practice. Just a few scant days here. March 5th. It's hard to believe next week Season of the Drifter starts.
Yeah, we thought maybe it would be Season of the Drifter, and then a week after that we would get access to Joker Wild. But it sounds like this is all going to be available on the 5th.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, Brent, and Tassie mentioned this earlier on Twitter. I saw him, but there's no mention at all of Joker's Wild at any time during this.
Yeah.
During this ViDoc. So when we originally were introduced to Black Armory, you have the Season of the Forge, and then you had Black Armory. There was a clear differentiation between what was going on there. But this is all Season of Drifter all the time. There was not one single mention of Joker's Wild, not once. I think it showed up in on the blog post one time when they mentioned when they were talking about something having a different name now. So. So is Joker's Wild a thing anymore? Is it simply just all Season of the Drifter? Are they moving away from the names of the content? I mean,
it looks like it, because if you look at the gameplay calendar, they sent out the revised one, and it just says Season of the Forge. It doesn't even mention Black Armor. It just says Season of the Forge, and then it says Season of the Drifter, and then Season of Opulence. We don't even have like Penumbra or Joker's Wild. It's just this is the season. So it looks like they're getting away from those subtitles, and it's just the season is the season.
Which makes sense. It doesn't really make sense to have two names for your season. So I think they probably realized that like we don't really need that other name. It was just confusing, especially if they're all just going to release everything all at once. It just makes sense just to stick with the one name. I like the little tease you threw in there for Season of Opulence. Stay tuned, viewers. We have more to discuss with that. Now, one of the other things that we haven't talked about that I'm super interested in is, so with the Reckoning, this brings the 9 into the fold. The 9 is a very, very mysterious entity in the Destiny universe. The only hints we've gotten of the 9 have been Xur himself, the mysterious exotic vendor we see on weekends, and then the emissary with Trials of the 9 when Destiny 2 first came out. And then there's talk of the 9 throughout the lore of Destiny, but we don't really know who or what the 9 is, what their purpose is, what they're trying to do. It looks here we see the emissary meet up with Drifter in this, and they actually talk about how the Drifter has some of the coolest lore in the game, and that's true. If you go watch like Bife or one of these guys talk about the Drifter, there's some super cool stuff here with the Drifter. So that's one of the other things I'm super excited about this DLC, is to see what makes the Drifter tick. What is this guy all about? They mentioned we're going to be helping the Drifter, but we don't know if we're doing good or bad with this. This guy's kind of a smarmy dude, so we don't know, if we're playing on the right side of the ball here. And yeah, apparently the 9 and the Drifter are working together for some reason. We saw hints of some cutscenes that are going to be available to this. So it's one of the things they did with Black Armory, but they told story through the lore, and there were things that happened in Black Armory, some big things that happened, and spoilers if you haven't seen this part of Black Armory, but at one point in that game, Uldren is resurrected as a guardian. And this is all playing out in the background as you're doing your offerings to the Oracle, and all of this stuff's playing out. I don't even know how you access that thing anymore. It was just kind of something that was happening as the weeks went on. That is a huge development in the story, and there's probably going to be some huge developments in the story here with the Drifter and with the 9. And I'm curious, as they're releasing these these annual pass pieces of content, and they're building all these subplots. We have what's going on with Uldren and the Awoken. Now we're gonna have stuff with the Drifter and the 9. Like, would all this stuff come to a head in the main game? Like, do they start dropping these subplots, and then in the next big piece of Destiny expansion content, like that's when all of these storylines start coming to a head? Like
that would be pretty cool, man. I think that'd be really cool, because we weren't expecting a whole lot of narrative stuff from these expansions, but we're starting to get, like you said, these little peeks, these little hints, like, hey, what is this all about? And that'd be really cool if they did do it. Kind of just bring everything together in that big fall update, and here's why Uldren's back, and here's what happened, or this is why we saw certain things in Season of the Drifter, and then Season of Opulence, little teases that'll all come full circle in the big update in the fall. Jacob, what's up, man? How's it going? He says, who's ready for some sweaty Gambit Prime? This guy is. I'm ready to sweat.
Hands raised, ready, ready for the sweatiness. Yeah, I just the lore of Destiny is excellent, and for the narrative faux pas that the game has made over the years, the lore in the world that's been created in Destiny is really second to none when it comes to science fiction. It is a fantastic universe full of amazing stories and amazing lore, and there's so much in this game that you can mine from a story perspective that I love that we're still kind of keeping that conversation going, and we're keeping things going in the background. And I can't wait to see more about the Drifter and the 9. What about you, Frankie, man? You got a thing for the Drifter or Xur and his buddies?
You could say that. Yeah, no, I a lot of the stuff I do, because I actually do read a lot of the lore that I end up picking up.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to read through that.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there, especially with like we were talking about the Drifter, and he's a very sketchy guy. I think it was I don't remember if it was the trailer or actually when we finished the mission for Malfeasance, but just the way he talks to you, like, you don't want to cross me, like, it's like, okay, no one fight here. But just watching this trailer, like, you can tell, characters are talking to him like Dredge, he's like, it's Drifter now, like, he very obviously has a very detailed past, and there's just an aurora about him that I want to know more about, regardless if he turns out to be a jerk. He's the way he carries himself, and just the stuff you read about him, he's the most interesting character they've added to the game, which kind of makes me okay with him. Not totally okay with them killing off Cade, but I feel like there's another character now that I see, and I'm very interested in following, his adventures. So.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna agree with Frankie. I think he is easily the most interesting character in the game right now. I mean, he's got charisma. He's funny. He's hilarious. He's got the attitude. He's not afraid to say what he wants to say. And like Frankie says, he's got this sketchy background. Like, we're not sure if he's a good dude or if he's a bad dude or if he's somewhere the gray area in between. But yeah, he's an absolutely interesting character, and I'm really excited to see these little scenes that we'll get, no doubt, throughout this. You know, when we complete the Thorn quest, are we going to get another kind of like weird scene where another conversation with him? It's gonna be really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm super interested. We're actually going to be on the Drifter ship too, as a part of this DLC. They mentioned that, so you know, whether that's how we access Gambit Prime or that's apparently how we get to this Reckoning activity too, is through the Drifter ship. So, what kind of stuff is going to be in there? You know, what's that whole thing going to be like? Going in there and being a part of that ship. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what they show us about to do. Like you guys mentioned, he's just a super interesting cat with a lot going on. And they mentioned some deep lore, so I think we're gonna really dig into what makes the Drifter tick, his past, everything that goes into this guy. Because yeah, anytime anybody talks about the Drifter, there's always something going on. You know, you hear Cade talk about him, and any of the other characters in the game when they talk about stuff with the Drifter, there's always something else that goes into it. So yeah, so that's one of the kind of under the radar things I think with Season of the Drifter that I'm really excited about. That is not, you know, necessarily like a bullet point on the back of the box, but yeah, can't wait to see the lore involving the Nine and the Drifter. Why are they working together? You know, two just shadowy organizations coming together to see what that's all about. So so back to Gambit for a minute. So we've talked about the armor up to this point, but armor is not all we're getting. As you can see on the roadmap, we're also getting new weapons as well. There's a whole suite of new weapons, presumably associated with Gambit Prime. And they mentioned a couple of them in the video here. We have these are all great names as usual, but the Spare Rations hand cannon, the Soul Survivor sniper rifle, and the Doomsday grenade launcher. These are three of the multitude of weapons that are going to be available with Gambit, but it appears that they're going to have weapons for all archetypes. So for the, you know, auto rifle, shotgun, so on and so forth. You see a bunch of them throughout the video, and then there's a post up on Bungie where you can see all the different weapons, and it looks like there's one for everything. So we're gonna have a full suite of armor, a full suite of weapons that we're gonna have access to. Will there be new perks with these guns? It sounds like, and I don't remember if I read it on here or where it was at, but it sounds like we're gonna have new perks that are gonna be introduced into the game as well, whether that's just strictly through armor or we're gonna have new perks on the weapons as well. I'm really curious to see how all this stuff plays out, but I would imagine that some of these Gambit weapons would have some of those new perks associated with them being, you know, the new weapons for Season of the Drifter. What's sticking out to you about the weapons, Brent? Anyone in particular you want to get your hands on?
You know, Jacob actually mentioned it in the chat. The auto rifle looks really, really good, and the shotgun does look amazing as well. But yeah, I've always been an auto rifle guy, so I like those unique-looking auto rifles. Obviously, Breakneck is one of my favorite auto rifles in the game. It looks awesome, it has that really cool look to it. But the aesthetic of all these weapons looks really, really good. Like, they all look really great, and so that's always a plus. And there's a lot. I mean, we basically have every archetype covered here. We have just about every single one, so that is really, really great, and they all look really good.
Yeah, and they have forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, they look really good. Franklin, which one of these weapons are you trying to get your hands on, man?
I'm a hand cannon and pulse rifle guy, so
absolutely,
I like what I see.
Man after my own heart. Spare Rations it is. I love that name for a hand cannon. That's whip out my Spare Rations and just nuke you. That's awesome. But yeah, I saw I was watching a video earlier, I think from my man Aztecross, and he was mentioning that the auto rifle looks a lot like the Kvastov in there. So could we see a new version of the Kvastov? Could this be something similar to that gun? We'll have to see how it all plays out. But yeah, obviously, anytime we get new weapons and armor, it's an exciting time to be a Destiny player, because that's why we play these games. We play these games to get the loot, get the new weapons and armor, build our character up. So very curious to see what these things entail. That's not all, though. There's other stuff going on here. So, Power Surge bounty. So this is Bungie's answer to the way Black Armory started. So if you remember back to the beginning of Black Armory, one of the issues that the community had with the game was that it was difficult to get into the Black Armory content when you first started Black Armory. The first forge that you had access to, your power level wasn't quite to the point where you could comfortably go in and make your way through that forge. So for hours and for some people it was weeks before they could comfortably get into a forge and participate in the activity. So Bungie's like, no more of that. They're introducing what they're calling power surge bounties. You'll be able to grab these from the Drifter when Season of the Drifter starts, but these are going to reward you with 640 level gear. And as they mentioned it in the ViDoc, basically the first 1 or 2 hours of the game, you will be at the power level you need to be at to participate in what Season of the Drifter has to offer. Brent, is this a good solution to the problems we saw with Black Armory?
Yeah, I think this will allow a lot of people who are coming back into the game after being away for a while, gives them an opportunity to rank up and try out these new events. And Jacob made a good point, a good observation here. When we go visit the Drifter and we get our bounties, he's in that little hallway. Where is he at here? Is he on a ship? Is he not going to be in the tower?
I'm guessing he's on his ship because we can access his ship now. That was my thought as well. I'm guessing the ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. But, yeah, no, I think it's a really great thing that they have these power surge bounties here because, like I said, it's going to keep the activity full with people. It's going to allow people who've been away for a while to get back in, try out, rank up really quick, and get into the mix. So it's a smart move.
Yeah. You agree, Frankie? Is this a good move to get your power up?
Yep. Yeah, especially if you've lapsed, So, and I know, I think Jamie's still at like 320, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, he was asking me about Black Armory last week, and I was telling him like, dude, you got a lot of work to do. But I feel like with this, he'll be able to get back in there and actually get caught up pretty quickly. So that's good.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I was thinking of this more from my perspective as a player who's at a certain power level, being able to just go in there and just get the last few pieces of power you need to get into this activity. But yeah, for somebody like Jamie who's been lapsed for a little while, he can jump in here and just get right back into the mix of things. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the power surge bounties as well. And there's some other interesting things that they're adding as part of Season of the Drifters. This is what I'm getting at with some of these more than I anticipated seeing with this Season of the Drifter content. So they're introducing what they're calling an allegiance quest. This was previously known as the Joker's Wild weekly quest on the and this is the one mention of Joker's Wild right here with the allegiance quest. This was previously known as the Joker's Wild weekly quest on the calendar. But this will invite you to choose between the Vanguard and the Drifter. Pick a side to progress through the quest from their perspective. This pledge is character-based, so if you have more than one Guardian, you can play both sides. Choose wisely. Brent, what is this about, man?
Oh, man, I wonder if this is like, we heard them talk about this a while back, where there was that rumor going around that they wanted to have Destiny have more of a branching story arc.
When they were talking about Destiny 3.
Yeah, and I can't help but wonder, maybe this is just kind of like that test, just get to see a little bit, what happens if one person chooses one way or one person chooses the other? Is that going to affect the way you converse with Zavala? Is that going to change your relationship? It'll be like, hey, why are you working with him? You've been working with us for the last 5 or 6 years. What are you doing? Why are you going over there? So, I mean, that could be maybe the start of that. Maybe a little peek at what they're trying to do where you can kind of create sides.
Yeah. It's interesting, between the Vanguard and the Drifter. Now, Frankie, they mentioned this was previously known as the Joker's Wild weekly quest. So I'm curious, how involved this is going to be. Is this going to be a multi-week event that you're going to be going through trying to participate in this activity? What's your thought on this idea? What do you think this is, man?
To me, it kind of sounds like an evolution of their factions idea, except now you're kind of bringing it down to just the Vanguard and the Drifter, which is also making me further question where the Drifter's loyalties lie. If you're kind of going against the Vanguard, obviously the Drifter's going to do whatever is necessary, whereas Zavala and the Vanguard are very, much more aware of what they're doing. So I'd be curious to see how this plays out, because now I'm just starting to wonder, okay, so going forward, is the Drifter going to end up playing a larger role in the overall Destiny universe than we think right now? That's what I'm starting to wonder, is if this is the groundwork for going forward and you're picking these sides, is the Drifter eventually going to become problem for us.
Like the main protagonist going forward. Like he's going to be the problem for the Guardians, the problem for the Vanguard.
The new Prince Aldrin of the future.
Yeah,
the guy who starts as a background player and eventually ascends to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob's going deep into speculation. He says, telling the future now. The Drifter is your dad. I would be opposed. I think he'd be a cool dad. He's probably got some cool stories.
Yeah. Thanks for your input, Jacob. We appreciate it. I don't think there's any question, and it's when you play Destiny, like you guys were talking about, I forget the voice actor's name, so forgive me, but the charisma that he brings to the character, just the interest that this character has, the fact that he's at the heart of this new mode that everybody really likes. So it's clear that he's kind of staked his claim to the Destiny universe. He was kind of the guy driving us to get the last word. He was the guy behind that whole quest, and now he's front and center for this whole new season of content. And he's involved with the 9 and Xur and everything that's going on with this, and so there's so much to mine from the Drifter. They would be silly not to take advantage of that and dig into this guy a little bit more, make him a more central figure in the Destiny universe, because he is such a cool character.
Yeah.
So that's all we have for the Allegiance quest. We don't know what it entails. We don't know what we're doing when we're picking sides. Do we access different gear because of this? Like, what's at the end of this quest? Still so many questions with the Allegiance quest, but that'll have to wait for another day. Now, one of the things we've speculated about on this show several times, or at least I have, because I have certain things that I want from Xur, but we've talked about what they used to call Xur bounties on the upcoming calendar. They now have a name: Invitations of the 9. This will be an exploration of the 9 and their mysterious place in the universe. Now, next to like the darkness and maybe the Drifter, the 9 is one of the things I'm most interested about in Destiny, because there's so many theories about what they are or their place in this universe. I really want to know more about this group and what their whole purpose is. The path begins with Xur on Friday, March 15th, so this will be a couple weeks into the season. Annual pass owners will be able to pick up an Invitation of the 9 from Xur. Once the objectives are completed, it will transform into a bounty called Into the Unknown. These will be available to complete once per character, similar to the bounties you got at the beginning of Forsaken for completing an activity with a full gear set. Week over week for 9 weeks, you'll collect new lore and powerful rewards.
Ooh.
So, Brent, this sounds like a limited time event. They mentioned they compare it to the activities at the beginning of Forsaken, where you knocked out those activities with a full gear set, and then you got that reward, and then that bounty was gone after that. So it sounds like, for Season of the Drifter, this is going to be a limited time event where we're going to learn lore about the 9 and gain access to what powerful rewards are they gonna give us for this? Is this going to be brand new, like 9 themed gear? Is it going to be the ability to reroll our exotic armor? What is this going to be?
Man, so you're talking like this could be like something that we kind of saw with the what was the forge thing we saw?
Yeah, the Curse of Osiris, the forge weapons.
Yeah, something like that. We're gonna get like different weapons that are limited time. Obviously, we can still get those weapons now, but yeah, it's something to that effect. So it's gonna last over the course of 9 weeks. There's obviously gonna be a lot of different variations to grab. Hopefully they'll have different types of perks to them that make them unique. I mean, if these are going to be powerful weapons, I expect them to be there to be some differences to them that sets them apart from the regular pool of weapons. So yeah, I think that's something that when I read that, that's exactly what I thought about the Curse of Osiris with the forging of weapons and going out and collecting whatever you needed to collect so you could forge those weapons.
That's a good call. That makes a lot of sense. Just thinking back about it. Frankie, what do you want to get in here and speculate with us? Invitations of the 9. What is this all about, dude?
I was wondering the same, honestly, because it's I'm hoping we're going to find out more about Xur, because these are spawning off of him, exotic quests and whatnot, or not exotic quests, the Xur bounties. So
yeah,
I'm hoping that this kind of gives us more of a behind the scenes look at what his purpose is, like where he came from, something about him, and just like a general understanding of the 9 in general. That's honestly all I'm hoping is for the lore to come out of this. Right. Obviously the rewards are going to be great, but the lore is what I'm looking forward to the most with these.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to that too. 9 weeks of lore about the 9 is going to give us a look into this group that we've never had before. So super curious about what that's going to entail. But at some point, please give us the ability to reroll our exotic armor. I don't care if it's a bounty If it's through Xur, just do something. Let us re-roll our exotic armor. Please, Bungie. Hear my cries. All right, moving on from there. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention this within Season of the Drifter, and that is, of course, the Thorn. So the Thorn will be making its return to Destiny with Season of the Drift. A lot of excitement around this hand cannon. Obviously, a legendary weapon from the first Destiny. We got Last Word back in the fold. Now we need Thorn back in the fold. And no question, this thing's going to be a nasty addition to the Destiny arsenal once it hits. And it sounds like pretty early on we're going to start earning this thing. And it, Brent, just reading between the lines here, this sounds like some type of a weekly quest that's going to involve Thorn, because they say we'll start to gain access to it starting with week 2. So that to me says that this is a quest that's going to be multi-tiered. It's going to be some type of a weekly activity that we're going to have to do. So when you actually get your hands on the Thorn, we don't know yet. But the process starts week 2 of Season of the Drifter. So come, March 12th, we'll have our first access to the Thorn. I mean, is that pretty much your read on it? Is some type of a weekly quest?
Yeah, I think it's going to play out kind of like the Nascent Dawn for the Polaris Lance, how we had to go, you knock out one step each week and you move on from there. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's something similar to that.
Yeah. Frankie, in the trailer or in the ViDoc, when they're talking about Thorn, they're showing what looks to be the Brood, what is that called? Broodborn, or whatever that's called, that mission where you go down into that hive nest and you fight that Brood Queen down there. It looks to be in that environment in the video there. And then there's that guy that's holding the Thorn. Who is that? Who is that character?
I wish I knew.
Are you talking about in that gameplay clip of it?
Yeah. And then at the end of that gameplay clip, there's somebody holding the Thorn, which I believe was the same person that was talking to the Drifter on his ship.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah. Who is that? Is that Shin Malphur?
Oh, that's a good question. Jacob, you want to chime in on this, man? I know Jacob knows his shit. Maybe he knows who that is. Yeah. I think it's a good guess, though, boys. I think that's a really good guess.
Could be Shin. Obviously, we saw Shin play an integral role with the Last Word. If you follow the lore with the Last Word quest, which there's a lot of really cool stuff in there as well. So definitely check that out. But yeah, so lots of questions about how that all is going to work. But the bottom line is, starting week 2, we are going to have access to Thorn, or at least the quest to get Thorn. So just to tie up everything that we've been talking about here. So this is what we're looking at for Season of the Drifter. So on March 5th, it begins. We're going to have access to Gambit Prime and the first tier of the Reckoning. The new Arcadia Gambit Prime map will be available. And from something else we haven't mentioned, private matches are coming to Gambit. Those will be available starting March 5th as well, much like you can have private matches in the Crucible. So that's really cool. March 8th, the Tier 2 of the Reckoning hits, so shortly after Tier 1. So maybe it won't be a weekly thing with this gear. Because right in there in that first week, we're going to have access to 2 different tiers of the Reckoning. So that kind of negates that idea that I had. March 12th, Gambit Prime will be set in Deep 6, which is the other new map, will enter the fold. Also on March 12th, the Thorn Quest and the Allegiance Quest start coming there. And just to circle back to this, so Frankie, you mentioned something earlier about the fact that the Thorn Quest and the Allegiance Quest are in the same box here. And just looking at this now, looking at the calendar, if you notice, they have a box for March 12th that says Gambit Prime Deep 6. Then they have another box for March 12th that says Thorn Quest, Allegiance Quest. So originally we were looking at that like, oh, maybe there's 2 different things on March 12th. But they already have another box for March 12th with Gambit Prime. So if this was indeed 3 different things, it would make logical sense that the Allegiance Quest would be in its own box on March 12th as well. And we'd have 3 boxes for March 12th. But we have 2 boxes. And the Allegiance Quest is in the box with the Thorn Quest. So Frankie, I ask you, these things look to be related, right? Is that the aspect of the Thorn Quest that plays out differently? Is if you choose to side with the Vanguard or with the Drifter? Talk to me here, man. What is going on here? Let's speculate some more.
Yeah, that's what I was gathering with this earlier. Is the Thorn Quest has the Vanguard watermark behind it, which seems strange, or maybe not. I guess because Last Word, I guess technically would be a Drifter gun. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know. The whole way they've talked about these guns now confuses me. Actually, thinking about all of this. Destiny.
I'm gonna Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
Go watch just a quick PSA. Go watch Bife's video on the story of Thorn and the Last Word. It's incredible. It's about an hour and a half long. It has voice actors. It's an incredible piece that will break down the story of Thorn and Last Word and everything that goes into that. Continue on.
No, I'm just thinking like, you know, Thorn's kind of like the anti-hero gun, you know, and you have the Vanguard on here. I really want to know how this allegiance thing is going to play out if they're related.
And that's interesting. I'm going to say my guess is it's simply just because they're both quests and they're both in the box. I'm going to assume it's just a quest box because the other one's a Gambit Prime. I'm going to assume this is just because these are when these two quests start. But Jacob makes a good point. He says, okay, the Thorn box. Maybe who you choose to side with changes the quest or the outcome of the quest.
Yeah.
That could be interesting as well. That maybe there's a choice, something, whichever way you go, it's going to change like the outcome, or you'll get a different result. I mean, that'd be pretty cool too. My guess is it's just a quest box. There's just 2 quests coming out that week. I mean, if you have a couple of quests, why not just put them both in the same box? Simply because March 12th, Gambit Prime is not a quest; it's a mode.
Mm-hmm. It's okay. You can try to prove your wrong theory. That's cool.
But I mean, the other box is just for the map, right? Like that's not Gambit Prime's the 5th, so 12th is just the new map for Titan.
Yeah. That's a new map. Yeah, that's true. It says Deep 6 underneath it.
But
yeah, it looks like Gambit Prime is going to be on a map rotation. Because on March 5th, we have New Arcadia. March 12th, we have Deep 6. And then March 19th, we'll see Legion's Folly, which is a map that we already have in Gambit. And that'll roll into Gambit Prime. So it seems like Gambit Prime is going to be on some type of a map rotation, at least at first.
Right.
Because
the other thing I'm wondering is, like, kind of going back to this Thorn and the Allegiance quest, if there are different outcomes, you know, like when we were seeing the Last Word and how there's, you know, something happened, obviously. I'm wondering if, depending who you're allied with, maybe that's when you get to the end of this quest, you'll get a different piece of that story, depending on who you're siding with, like that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, if, you know, like the Drifter, obviously, you kind of got a hint of with the Last Word. Maybe if you're siding with the Drifter, you see more of what happened on his end play out during that quest. The Vanguard, you know, you kind of see from the other side, you know, what happened and, you know, why this dude became ash on a rock.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Brent, this could be our first kind of testing ground for, you know, branching storylines or seeing what different choices could mean in the world of Destiny. And one of the big rumors about Destiny 3 some time back that we talked about was this idea that maybe you could choose to harness the darkness or the light and then play through the game with everything that entailed. So like you said, maybe this is moving us towards that future. We'll see.
Pretty sweet.
It would be cool. March 15th is, as we mentioned, Invitations of the Nine, and the Reckoning Tier 3 will go live. So we'll have all 3 tiers at that point. March 19th, Gambit Prime is in Legion's Folly. On the 26th, it's in the Emerald Coast. Then on April 2nd, all maps are available. So it sounds like at first we're going to get some type of rotation through all the Gambit maps, including the new ones. Once we complete that rotation, it sounds like all maps will be available in Gambit Prime. Not sure if that's how it's going to work, but that's what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
On April 9th, Arc Week, free to all players. Brent, what the hell is this?
I have no idea, man. Maybe Arc does double damage. I have no idea, dude. Arc Week sounds crazy.
Just a whole week dedicated to double Arc damage. It seems strange since we can just modify a Nightfall to do that automatically. But Frankie, any thoughts on what an Arc Week could be?
No, like you guys, like I was figuring
no
it's
idea
obviously
what this could
just double damage for arc weapons. Maybe it's just a week to kill arc striders. I don't know.
I'd be down with that. Hell, I'm a hunter, and I'd be more than happy to go out there. I'll play as an arc strider and jump off a cliff.
There are no other elements on this calendar. This is the only one. You would think if they have an arc week, okay, maybe there's a solar week and a void week as well. But there is one singular arc week on April 9th, and that's it. There's no solar week. There's no void week. There could be other weeks in other seasons, but why have an arc week on April 9th? Bungie, what in the hell is arc week? We want to know. We want to know right now. And then the final thing on the Season of the Drifter calendar that we have as of right now is April 16th through May 6th, something called the Revelry. This is a brand new activity seasonal event that's going to be taking place during Season of the Drifter, and it's running for quite a long time. It's going to be running for 3 weeks. So this is seemingly going to be a meaty event. We've never had a revelry before, so we have no idea what this is or what this entails. What is that symbol? Do you recognize that from anything?
Nothing. It doesn't stand out to me. I'm not sure what that is.
I mean,
heads or tails or what that is either.
I know that the center one's the Drifter or the Gambit Prime logo, isn't it?
Yeah, it might be actually. Let's see, do they have that up here?
Jacob says that also the center of the symbol is Ava Levante's symbol.
Oh, okay.
Maybe she's back.
She's coming back to
bake some more
participate
cookies.
in the revelry. will there be more baking? Find out when the revelry launches.
It's not Christmas time, so it's May, so it's spring, summer. We're gonna be grilling hot dogs. Is that what she's gonna be doing now? Instead of baking cookies, we're out cooking hot dogs. I dig it.
Yeah, and you get the big the big bounty is for the steak, for the T-bone.
Oh hell yeah, dude.
So that's what we got so far for Season of the Drifter. So lots of stuff packed into here. It seems like there's gonna be quite a bit to do, fellas. So needless to say, I'll be playing Destiny as I always do, all the time. So lots of fun stuff to look forward to there. Now, at this point in the show, now we've mentioned that for tuning into this episode, you're gonna have access to win an annual pass for Destiny 2. So if you are not an owner of an annual pass, we want you guys to partake in all the fun stuff we're talking about. We want you to be able to experience the Season of the Drifter to its fullest. So we're going to throw out a very simple question. If you watch the ViDoc, you're going to know the answer to this right away. We're going to throw out a simple question. If you do not have the annual pass and you would like to get it for the system of your choice, for the Xbox One or PS4, throw your answer into the comments. The first person that gets in there will be the winner of said annual pass. And then you can just let us know which system that you want that on. Brent, are you putting the question in the chat, or do you want me to
I'm gonna let you ask it, bro.
Just gonna say it. All right. So the question for you guys, if you need access to the annual pass to participate in everything we're talking about with Season of the Drifter, is this: in the Bungie ViDoc, when the emissary of the Nine comes face to face with the Drifter in that video, the emissary of the Nine calls the Drifter this. So first person that puts that in there, you will have access to the annual pass for Destiny 2. Moving on from there. So now we've
Jacob got it already.
Got it already. Good job, Jacob.
Damn, Jacob. He paid attention. I like Jacob. He's astute. I like that.
Jacob, I'm surprised you need the annual pass. I feel like you have the annual pass, but maybe I'm mistaken.
He is 650 already, so.
He says, I have no life. He says, no, he doesn't, because I think you can get to 650 without the annual pass, can't you? I don't think you need...
Really? Okay.
I don't think you need the Forge. I think you just need a Forsaken to get to 650.
Cool. I did not know that. So, congratulations to Jacob then. Good job, dude.
There you go.
All right, so moving on with the show here, we've got to talk pinnacle weapons. So one of the things we were interested in was what pinnacle weapons would be available for this season of Destiny, and we got our answers. So every player of Destiny 2 will find their rank reset in the Crucible, Gambit, and Vanguard missions come the start of Season of the Drifter. So let's talk about these guns, guys. Starting first and foremost with the new Crucible weapon, the new Vanguard weapons. This will be accessible via Zavala and the strikes and the Vanguard missions. So we have the Oxygen SR3 Precision Scout Rifle. It will be an energy scout rifle. It'll be in the solar slot. It is an Omelan scout rifle. So my guess is it will feel similar to what's that one I used all the time when Destiny 2 first came out. Can't think of it right now, but it's probably going to feel very similar to that gun I'm thinking about that I can't remember. But the Oxygen SR3's unique perk is Mega Neura. Dragonfly deals more damage based on the number of precision hits made beforehand.
Oh my!
Very interesting. So scouts have a long history with Dragonfly and its predecessor over the history of Destiny. This weapon seeks to double down on that history and improve upon it in a simple and effective way. And this is interesting here, the general design ethos of a pinnacle weapon is that if it approaches an exotic-esque effect, it must work conditionally, such as activating on a kill event or asking you to risk getting into melee range. And if it works in a neutral setting, then it must only change the way you can do something, not necessarily what you can do. This is an example of the former. Brent, talk to me about the Oxygen SR3.
I love scout rifles and I love Dragonfly, and this sounds badass, dude. Especially if you're very precise, and you can keep building up on precision hits beforehand. That's gonna be pretty boss, dude. Especially, I want to see what it's like though if you're fighting like an elite or something to that effect, and you're taking out ads around with precision shots, and the elite's almost down, and then you hit it with that final precision shot for the Dragonfly. How big is that explosion gonna be, dude?
Yeah, it says deals more damage based on the number of precision hits made beforehand. So imagine you're even like a strike boss or a raid boss or something. You're just wailing on this thing with your scout rifle, and you hit who knows how many precision hits during the damage phase for that boss, and then a group of ads hits the scene, and you hit that first ad with that Dragonfly, and that thing just explodes and nukes the whole entire crowd. Like, how cool is that going to be?
Dude, that's the first thing I'm going to try to do, man, because I think that sounds awesome. I mean, I love scout rifles in general, but this is a pretty cool perk, especially for PvE.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what's that strike with the Fanatic? The hollowed layer.
Yes.
So imagine you're in that strike and you're fighting the Fanatic, and he's standing there and you're fighting him during the damage phase. And in that strike, once he disappears behind that barrier, there are so many ads that come onto the screen at that time. There's like 30, 40 of them that come rushing out at you. So imagine if you're just wailing on him with your scout rifle, hitting those precision shots, and then this group of ads comes out and you just send a shot into that group. Like, how cool is that explosion going to be?
Oh,
that's
just
gonna be,
wipe out the whole crew.
Yeah, that's going to be super cool. You know, Frankie, one of the things I was watching a video from Aztecross earlier, and he was mentioning he wonders how the Dragonfly spec might work with this gun.
I was
just create an even
like,
bigger explosion.
It's like you can read my mind. I was literally just sitting here thinking about that. Like,
talk to me, man.
If I put the Dragonfly spec, the larger explosion on there, man,
this thing just goes nuclear.
Yeah,
I've got one of those sitting in my vault too, or in my inventory. I have a Dragonfly spec just sitting there, so I think I'll hang on to it now.
Yeah, so do I. So I'm gonna do too.
Yeah. So lots of very interesting, very fun-sounding possibilities with the Oxygen SR3. So that sounds like that's going to be a fun one to get our hands on. It's also, scout rifles have had a lot of work done on them over the last few months in Destiny 2. They've had several buffs, so it's a good time for the Oxygen to come back onto the scene. I would like a really, really cool scout rifle in my repertoire, so that sounds like one I will definitely be going after very early in Season of the Drifter. Let's move on to the Crucible weapon now. This is an interesting one. So we have the Recluse, which is a lightweight submachine gun in the Void category. So this will be an energy weapon as well. So the Recluse's unique perk is Master of Arms. Kills with any weapon improve this weapon's damage for a short time. Any weapon. So this is what makes this an interesting choice. Submachine guns are in a contentious spot in the game after the Forsaken release, with shotguns occupying a similar engagement range while also offering that one-hit kill shot potential that is so highly valued, alongside always being in competition with sidearms and even the Last Word as the close quarters primary weapon of choice. Submachine guns have fallen slightly to the wayside. So we created the Master of Arms perk so it could find its place in any given loadout. We look forward to seeing people experiment with it. So this is what's really interesting, Brent, is they've taken a gun that's outside of the meta.
Yep.
Typically, when you think of a Crucible pinnacle weapon, you're anticipating them, doing, something that's in the current meta. We've seen, hand cannons and so forth, and over the months here, pulse rifles, all those have been a part of the pinnacle Crucible weapon. But now we're getting a submachine gun that's outside of what people are using to get people to use this weapon. So it's a different style of thinking with this pinnacle weapon. But what they're saying is absolutely true. Like, could this be the gun that suddenly people gravitate to in the light machine gun category or the submachine gun category when it comes to the Crucible? Being able to amplify your damage on that weapon for a short time, and it's all going to come down to how much that damage is amplified. How easy is it for you to dispose of those shotgun rushers who are coming at you? And are you able to find your space with this gun? So I'm super curious to see how this one works. What's your thoughts on the Recluse?
It's going to have to be significant because shotguns are still pretty nasty up close. And you got to have something to fend it off, something to counter that. And this weapon could be that weapon. again, like you mentioned, it's going to depend what kind of damage output you're going to be able to do once you've knocked down a couple of kills with your other weapon. This could be a pretty nasty weapon and could counter shotguns pretty well.
Yeah, I'm imagining one of the perks on this gun being quick draw. So you eliminate an enemy with whatever gun you're using, quickly switch over to this one. Maybe even has snapshot too, and you're just right down the sights, quick draw right down the sights, and you're blowing your enemy away with that extra damage. We don't know what kind of rounds per minute this thing's gonna have. And I guess it's a lightweight machine gun, so whatever rounds per minute those ones generally have. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how this one works. Frankie, what do you think, man? One of the other interesting aspects of this is they're nerfing shotguns currently, or doing their best to kind of bring them in line with some of the other guns in the game. So this is a very interesting time for them to introduce a gun that potentially occupies the same space as a shotgun with a different style of play and could potentially be a counter to some of these other shotguns.
Yeah. I already know I'm never going to get this because I've yet to get a Crucible, peak weapon. So, man, you tell me like a counter to a shotgun's going to end up being, a light submachine gun. I rarely use those, so I totally get, these are, nobody touches these. That's the last gun I ever would have thought anyone would have been like, yeah, let's use that to kind of, let's put that up to like a shotgun type of statistical, advantage to using it. So I think it'll be cool because I do like submachine guns. A lot of times just they you pump a lot of bullets into things and they typically don't do enough damage in a clip to kill a lot of things you're fighting. So I feel like if they're adding this perk now, so it's basically like, it sounds like, like a hulked out kill clip. So it sounds like it'll be pretty cool, but I'm thinking I still have to kill somebody somewhere along the line with either this gun or something else to get this buff. So I'm not sure if honestly it's gonna work out as well as it sounds, but we'll see. Then again, I suck with submachine guns, so.
Yeah, that's the $64,000 question. How is this thing actually going to function? What is that damage bump like? But I'm really curious to see the community get their hands on that and see what this thing's all about. Then we have the Gambit Pinnacle weapon, the 21% Delirium, a rapid fire machine gun in the art category. The Delirium's unique perk is Killing Tally. Kills increase this weapon's damage until it is stowed or reloaded. This will be our first rapid fire machine gun for Destiny 2. How many of you out there guessed the archetype, but not the sub-archetype? With the reintroduction of bullet hose style machine guns, we figured a perk that played with their large magazine sizes and dealing with waves of enemies would be appropriate. Unlike the other two options, this one also has one of the new weapon perks we're introducing in Season of the Drifter, Overflow, to kick the magazine size out even further for true spray and pray action. This is what I was thinking of, Brent. This is when I was thinking of new perks. They mentioned it right here, Overflow. So clearly there's going to be new perks introduced, at least with the Gambit weapons. We don't know how many new perks are on how many guns, but Overflow is one of them. So I was thinking in my head as this thing was announced, I was like, this thing should probably have appended mag, so it has a larger clip. But now they have Overflow, which who knows how many bullets that thing's going to add to this. And imagine if you throw a backup mag mod on this as well, and you extend that clip even further. Like how many kills are you gonna be able to load up with this thing? And clearly, this thing's going to be a wonderkind in Gambit. Talk to me about the Delirium, dude.
Yeah, dude, this sounds pretty sexy, dude. This is definitely good for crowd control. And Jacob made a good point, pairing this with Breakneck. Oh, gross! Swapping out between those two things and just eviscerating crowds of enemies is going to be really badass, dude. It's going to be really nice. And it's going to be even, I think it's going to be good outside of like Gambit too. I mean, let's go back to that strike mission you were talking about. When an old boy goes behind the shield, all those people come out. You take out a row of them, and then he comes back out, and you just put the rest of that clip with Overflow into the for critical hits. You might drop them real quick.
And then it talks about here too, Frankie. Kills increase this weapon's damage until it is stowed or reloaded. Ugh. What if you're in a well of radiance? What if you're behind a rally barricade? What if you're in the Lunafaction boots in a warlock pool? Like is that, as this thing's automatically getting bullets put back into it, is that considered a reload? Or is this thing just going to be just firing off and you're going to increase the weapon damage until you're doing who knows what
That's what I'm hoping.
with the bullets. But
oh man,
how sick would that be?
Dude, I'm excited. This is the gun I want. Not only does it have like the best name of these, but this one seems best tailored to how I play this game. So this and Breakneck are going to be a great combination.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely some exciting stuff here, some exciting possibilities with these pinnacle weapons, but they sound really, really neat. Want to get my hands on all of them, and we'll have the opportunity to start doing that once Season of the Drifter rolls around. So a couple other things I want to touch on here briefly from the TWAB. So we have some changes coming to grenade launchers and rocket launchers. You can check that out in This Week at Bungie if you have not read that yet. I do want to touch on this briefly. So they're changing Eververse again.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, what they're doing is they're removing prismatic facets and the prismatic matrix from the game. So if you're unfamiliar with this, this allowed you to basically you complete a very simple challenge. You do any of the weekly challenges in the game, you get access to a prismatic facet. You can then use this at Eververse to unlock one of the 10 or 12 items that's in the prismatic matrix every week. They have things from exotic all the way down to rare, and the different emotes and things that that Eververse sells. So it was actually a pretty cool system. I dug it. I liked getting my prismatic facet every week and going into the matrix and using it and hoping that I get that exotic emote that I was wanting to get my hands on. I thought that was always like a fun little side thing to do. But for Season of the Drifter, Bungie says they want to try something new. We'll be removing the prismatic matrix. Instead, every week there will be unique bundles available that can be directly purchased for silver, allowing you to directly buy the exact items you want. All unique bundles will also contain an exclusive vanity item available only through that weekly bundle. So, we see pictures of some of the stuff here. There's the guy eating and drinking and throwing stuff over his shoulders.
Yeah, chicken emote.
Yeah, the chicken emote. That one looks pretty cool. We see hints of some of the armor. We see like a ornament for the last word, ornament for Thorn. See some ships and some sparrows and some other things that are going to be a part of this. That sparrow looks pretty wicked, by the way. But so my thing with this is I'm not sure why we had to take the prismatic matrix away. I thought it was a pretty cool addition to the game and a nice medium between outright buying the stuff and then being able to do a challenge and earn some of the stuff that's in Eververse. Obviously, you'll still gain access to Bright Engram, still be able to earn the stuff that's a part of Eververse. And this is going to give people the opportunity to directly purchase things that they want, which is something that the community's wanted more and more over the years. So whether or not you care to pay for emotes and vanity items or not, I don't know about getting rid of the Matrix. I feel like that was a good part of the game, and now it's just being replaced by stuff that we can buy with silver. There's no way for us to earn this new thing that they're doing with Eververse. So not 100% on board with that, but at the end of the day, it's Eververse. It's cosmetic stuff. It doesn't really affect the game in any way, shape, or form. But I will miss the prismatic Matrix next season. What do you think, Brent?
Yeah, is this removing bounties completely?
I don't think it's going to remove the bounties. We'll still get those to earn Bright Dust, but the actual one that gives us the prismatic facet is going to be gone.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, I like you said, I like going in there, and even if it was just a random chance of getting the one you want, it gave me a reason to go back to Eververse and knock some stuff out, and it gave me something to do out in the world, in terms of a bounty. So, yeah, it's kind of a strange decision to remove that.
Yeah. What about you, Frankie? You got any thoughts on Eververse? Do you ever do any of the Eververse stuff?
Yeah, I'm like you. There's always some kind of dumb exotic dance or some emote that I'm chasing after. So. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's nice to, just have the option to buy it, but at the same time, there's so many of these that I like. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be spending money every week.
Yeah.
Instead of, maybe having a chance to get the one thing that I want, Mm-hmm. But again, like you said, it's cosmetic, but it still kind of sucks that they're kind of, essentially taking away an avenue. Even if it's a random chance, they're taking away an avenue to getting the stuff instead of just outright paying for it.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the prevailing theory about this move as well. I think most people are going to be sad to see the Matrix go, so maybe they'll bring it back again. They've already taken it away and brought it back 3 or 4 times at this point, so we'll see if they do it again. But one more note here before we get to the end of the show. The Bungie rewards offer for the premium seal pins that you get for getting your titles in the game, Cursebreaker, Dredge, and all those ones, they've been extended. So now instead of the end date being March 30th, it will now go to August 31st. So that's a nice change for people that are trying to get their hands on these. But these medals look sweet. I really want to get my hands on one of these. I think we're pretty close to getting a Dredgen or a Curse Breaker. So either of those would be nice to add to the collection, but these medals are pretty sweet. So those have been extended due to some changes that they're making with some of the quests and how you gain access to these things. So if you are somebody who's been on the outside looking in on one of these medallions, you want to get your hands on one, you will have more time to do so now. I want to end the show with talking about the Destiny gameplay calendar. So we had Season of the Drifter come, and they blew the lid off everything that was going to entail, and we've talked about that. But at the end of the ViDoc, Bungie, as Bungie does, they started to give us their little hints, and they started to drop things about what's next for Destiny outside of Season of the Drifter. So up to this point, we've had Season of the Redacted in our vernacular, and the Penumbra update. Like, that's all we've kind of known about what comes after Season of the Drifter. But we now have a name for it. They dropped the name Season of Opulence. Luke Smith did at the end of the video. He came in and let us know that the next piece of content they're working on is Season of Opulence. They've even added a few things into the roadmap here. So we now know Season of Opulence. We've got, of course, the new Vanity, Power Increase, Exotic Quests, etc., and so on. We know we're getting a new raid with Season of Opulence. We're getting a new 6-player match-made activity. Solstice of Heroes will return. There's some other items on there that are redacted, and possibly a few more things that are going to be added into the mix as well. But the main thing with this is we now know that it's called Season of Opulence, and I want to talk about this for a brief second here. So when I think opulence, Brent, I think the Leviathan.
Yep.
I think Callus and everything that goes into that. This royal palace, this royal cabal palace that we raided on several occasions through a number of raids there. And when the mascot for this activity has always been the bot, which looks a lot like Benedict 99 or whatever, the guy that the guy that runs the vendor booth for the Leviathan. And when they started talking about Season of Opulence, they showed us some environments that looked a lot like the Leviathan. So it really got the gears turning. Like, what is this thing going to be all about? Because we now know, Penumbra is very, very mysterious. We know that this thing's going to be mysterious. But does this give us any hint at what to look for with this Season of Opulence, man? Luke Smith said, "Hey, we're hard at work. The guys upstairs, they're hard at work on Season of Opulence right now, making that the best thing it can be, or making that thing awesome for you guys." I don't know, man. I saw some Leviathan stuff. Are we going back to the Leviathan? Are there going to be secrets within the Leviathan that are going to unveil what the Season of Opulence is all about? Because that's the big thing about this update, right? It's going to be a mysterious update. It's going to be a community-driven, secret-filled type of experience. I don't know, man. Any initial thoughts on this?
I mean, it makes sense because, there was already a lot of secrets hidden within the Leviathan anyways. So, it makes sense. I hope it's not the exact same. I hope it's some kind of new add-on or some kind of some form of new addition, because I feel like the Leviathan has been scoured from top to bottom now. But yeah, it makes sense. The Leviathan essentially to me is almost kind of like oh God, it's gonna bother me. What's the ship in Dreadnought, thank you. Yeah. My God, I'm getting so old. But very similar. A lot of secrets hidden within.
Like the USS Enterprise.
But yeah, it's gonna be a mysterious place, a lot of hidden secrets. But and when you think of Opulence, you think of Callus, you think of the Leviathan. So clearly, this is it's gonna come into play.
Yeah, Frankie, we have a name, Season of Opulence. What do you think?
I noticed one of the new Eververse things, one of the sparrows looks
very Leviathan-esque. Right?
Yeah, and they did name drop a new raid in the ViDoc. So,
did they?
Yeah.
When did they?
Where was it? What'd they say?
I'd have to go back and listen to it, but I remember hearing it was when they were summarizing what everyone was working on. Like, they were talking about content that's coming. They did name drop a new raid. I wish I had written it down because I'm not smart.
Yeah, we know a raid is coming for sure with the with the next season of content. I didn't catch the name for it either. I've watched that ViDoc about
Rebel. That's the Rebel raid.
Rebel raid.
Interesting. I didn't catch that. I'll have to go back and listen to it.
I have to go back and look for that. I've watched this ViDoc like 8 times.
But you're old.
That's very true.
Yeah, it was just a quick name drop. It wasn't. There's no details. Just the Rebel raid is all they said. Jacob heard it as well, apparently.
Yeah, so we've got the season of opulence out there. But that wasn't it in terms of the interesting stuff that they were talking about. So, as the Cross mentioned this as well, but he was like, when they bring Luke Smith onto the scene, they put Luke Smith behind the camera. Like something big's going on. Like this guy, this is the top of the food chain when it comes to Destiny. This is the creative director of basically all of Destiny. So when this guy hops onto a video or this guy says something in a blog post, there's some weight behind this. So there's a few things at the end of this video that I picked out that Bungie was talking about that I thought were very interesting. So Brent, they came out and they said, this is the first time we're coming out really understanding how we want to structure a season of content, bringing Destiny more in line with what our core community wants. Luke said, we're starting to figure out what the roadmap for a Bungie-controlled Destiny looks like. Emphasis on Bungie.
Oh, yeah, heavy emphasis.
This is one of the most exciting times. We're beginning to form up the muscles to make Destiny a quick-reacting live game, and I can only see it getting better from here. This is the beginning of the conversation about where Destiny can go from here. The teams upstairs are working on Season of Opulence, building plans for how to make the thing that comes after that even better right now as well. So they're already talking about the things that are coming after that. So is that a piece of fall content? Is this something down the line? Is this just simply Destiny 3? Like, what does this Bungie-led Destiny look like? But, Brent, we saw Luke make a blog post a few weeks back where he's like dropping these cryptic hints. Now he's behind the camera talking more cryptic stuff about the future of Destiny. I don't know, man. We might be getting closer to learning about what the future of Destiny is like here sooner than we might think. What'd you take away from all this, though, man? More speculation. Let's do it.
Yeah, speculation, but I think this confirms what we've been wondering. I mean, when they mentioned this is what comes after this annual pass, I mean, they're referencing the fall update. There's going to be a fall update. There has to be a fall update. Because and then you think about what Luke Smith said. I mean, dude, this is the first two or three things you read basically sounds like a developer that's breaking from the shackles.
Oh, yeah.
They're able to do what they want now. Bungie led. What was the quote that he used? It was a Bungie created plan or whatever.
We're starting to figure out what the roadmap for a Bungie-controlled Destiny looks like.
A Bungie-controlled Destiny. I mean, they're very excited. You can tell by the enthusiasm by saying that they're really excited about it. And dude, we got our first unconfirmed confirmation that we will see something in the fall. I mean, it's clear as day, even though it's shrouded in mystery. It's also right there in front of us. Yeah,
and it's interesting too because technically, this annual pass content is still stuff that they had worked out with Activision. And it's still stuff that the Activision studios like High Moon and Vicarious were helping them create up to a certain point. But it already sounds like they're starting to plant the seeds for what this Bungie-led Destiny looks like, even in the midst of this content that seemingly was already under production and probably close to being finished. They're already starting to put their mark on what this Bungie-controlled Destiny looks like. And like you mentioned, Brent, like he really emphasized Bungie when he said that.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, we're starting to figure out the roadmap for a Bungie-controlled Destiny, it looks like. Like he really put the emphasis on that. So and you can just almost feel the excitement in this video. Like the studio seems very energized, and obviously they're putting a ViDoc out that people are going to be excited for that. But there's just, I don't know, you just like felt the vibe from the video. Like they're really excited about this content. They're really excited about this game that they now have full control over. And it's really exciting as a fan that to watch them be able to flex their muscles and do what they want with this game without the overlords at Activision kind of overseeing everything. Frankie, what'd you take from any of this stuff, man? Anything stand out to you in these kind of these cryptic hints they dropped at the end of this video?
I mean, not really. I gather they're very excited that Activision's not going to be there to kind of push them into making the game more accessible. It sounds like they're going to be able to get in there and do the things that they wanted to do with this game from the start. Because I can't imagine a lot of the decisions coming into Destiny 2 were things they wanted to do. And it's why a lot of like us, like the hardcore Destiny players from the first game came in. And, there's a lot of things in Destiny 2 that were like, why would you get rid of this system in favor of this? And just all kinds of stuff that coming in was very clearly like Activision wants more people to buy and play this game. Let's make it more accessible to them and, not so much the hardcore Destiny community. So I feel like, from the start, I've always kind of got this, I think all of us have, like, there's always kind of been like this weird tension between, what Activision's out there promoting and when Bungie's out there talking. Like, there's two very different agendas at play, I always felt. So I feel like with this, they all seem like they're like kind of as a collective, like breathing a sigh of relief and like, okay, we know what we want to do with this game. They're building the foundations going forward for what they want Destiny to be, without having to worry about any kind of suits coming in and being like, all right, well, you need microtransactions for this and that. You need to make this more accessible so we can get more people in here, more casuals. And this is kind of them being like, this is our roadmap. And, we're seeing a lot more stuff coming that is tailored to the stuff that we had expected, from the get-go. So I feel like it's nice seeing them kind of, you can feel the optimism at the studio in this video.
Absolutely. It's interesting too, just listening to you talk there, just thinking back about Bungie's time with Activision. Bungie always tried to position themselves seemingly as their own thing. Just thinking back, whenever they did a reveal for one of their games, it was always a Bungie Twitch stream. Like, it was them in their studio doing stuff. It was never Activision trotting them out onto a stage in the Activision theater and them going through some big hoo-ha to unveil their game. It was always like Bungie doing the things that they wanted to do with their guys, with their studio. And yeah, they always seemingly tried to operate outside of Activision. They rarely ever talked about Activision, if at all. They bring them up like our partners at Activision, this and that, and in just some basic like PR terms. But yeah, just thinking back to the history of Bungie with Activision, they always tried to operate as much as they could as like their own thing, like making their own game with Destiny. But yeah, as we talked about, Brent, when the news broke some weeks back, just incredibly excited that they were able to not only break away from Activision, but secure the rights to their game, secure the rights to the future of Destiny, that they can make it their own way. And yeah, I just can't wait to see where we go from here. I'm really, really excited about Season of the Drifter. Sounds like we're gonna have a lot of stuff to play and do, and I can't wait. Come Tuesday, man, we're gonna be back into this thing.
Yeah, dude, just like that. Here it is. I mean, last week we weren't sure if we were going to hear much at all for next week, and here we are. We were going to get a bunch of stuff dropping on Tuesday, and there's going to be a lot to do, so going to be good times, man. Yeah,
whereas we thought last week that we might have that week, leading up to the release of Joker's Wild, as we were calling it at the time. It sounds like once March 5th hits, that's it, man.
It's on,
we're hitting the ground running, and Season of the Drifter is a full go. So, yeah, super excited about that. So, obviously, this has been a long episode of Tower Talk. We had a lot of stuff to discuss. Had Frankie here with us, so there was just a lot of things to go into and discuss this week. Appreciate all you guys watching the show, joining in the conversation with us. Brent, you want to give a shout-out to everybody we saw in the chat today?
Jacob was in there tonight. ViDoc Insanity was in there. Perfect
Wolf was in there.
Yeah. Wolf was there tonight. So we really appreciate you guys stopping by and talking Destiny 2 with us. Jacob, Insanity, Wolf, you guys are always here. We appreciate you guys always chiming in and sharing your thoughts. That's why we do the show.
Yeah, congrats to Jacob for snagging the season pass or the annual pass as well for Destiny 2. So we will get that over to you shortly. Once again, if you guys like what we do here on Tower Talk, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, hit the little bell so you always know when we go live. Tower Talk typically airs Thursday around 10 p.m. Eastern right here on the YouTube channel, so stay tuned for that. But that's going to do it for us. That's going to wrap up the video. For Brent, for Frankie, I'm Ben. We'll see you guys out there on the battlefield. We're pumped for Season of the Drifter come Tuesday. We'll have lots of streams going up for Destiny over the weeks and months ahead, so stay tuned for that. But thanks so much for you guys for watching, for chiming in the comments. We appreciate you guys. Have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.